First of all, it's not a coincidence. It's the design of the God that I'm going to talk about the ancient traditions and the IT doesn't work. It matches. The reason is, the things which I'm going to talk are about the people, about the cultures, about the traditions which have been existing for more than 2000 years. So we'll have to wait probably for another few thousand years to see that the things work, but it is working. The reason is, if it works, then I have another explanation for that. Because normally, in early days, we used to say that generations are 100 years. Then gradually the span of generations started reducing. So we started saying that it is 30 years that generation changes. So moving from dhoti to pajama, pajama to full pant took 30 years in India. I remember my grandfather used to wear dhoti and he used to make fun of my father who was wearing pajama, saying that you are anti-cultural. But suddenly I started wearing the pant and my father said, "We should be proud of your culture, wear some pajama." When I asked him, "Your father used to wear dhoti, you came to pajama, let me get into pant." So it was 30 years. But when it came to computer, I remember when I was a student, the computer used to need a room like this to accommodate. And now you carry a computer on your palm. So the generations in computer have reduced to sometimes in a few months. And that's why it's very interesting when you look at the world, and if you look at the world, suddenly you'll find that there are revival of many of the ancient traditions around the world. And I would like to start with a beautiful saying. You imagine a small village, a remote village, where a person gets up in the morning and goes out of his home, stands on a small mound which is outside home, which is a hut, and takes a little bit of water in his hand and then spills the water towards sun and says, "Oh Lord Sun, give us the amount of wheat which is needed for our sustenance, and remaining heat, you cool it down with the water I am offering." Now those who are from India, most of them must be thinking that this must be happening on the banks of Mother Ganga, and some Rishi must be doing that, but that's not true. This is the African person who is in Kenya, and there is a tradition which is known as Kikuyu, and these Kikuyus have this tradition of offering water, they call it water libation, and they do it every day. And that, not only that, I had a very interesting experience. I was visiting a village which is known as Bigi Poeta, and this Bigi Poeta village was in Amazonian jungle on the border of Brazil and Suriname, southern part of Suriname. And then I was staying with them, all the Native Americans, and then I asked them that, it was a curiosity. So I asked them, "Do you know any person who has seen a God?" And without blinking the eye, one of the Native American elder, the old man said, yeah, we have some people there. I said, wow! Because we always thought that Ramakrishna Paramahansa was the person who really confidently said, "I have seen a God and I can show you." That was the only person I heard about in the recent years. And suddenly this person said, "Yeah, it happened." I said, "Well, how it happened?" He said that all our Native American elders who are really, really thorough in spirituality, they go inside on the banks of the Sankarani river. Over the period of time, they follow certain rules of life. Don't get involved in sex, don't eat non-vegetarian, practice meditation, and over the period of time, a time comes when the water, normally there will be 4 or 5 fishes. Here, there will be lots of fishes, and our elders talk with the God through the fishes. Now, that is their perception. But there are people around, and it is, if you see it, and I would like to write in the beginning, would like to understand that when you look at all the ancient traditions, and I was very happy when Dr. Vinod Ambastha said that Dr. Saab has written a book, and he explained that book is on Hinduism, but he used the word ancient traditions. I love that. Because the world had thousands and thousands of different traditions. If you go to Africa, there are over 1,000 African traditions. You have Kikuyu, Xhosa, you have Ashantis, you have Yoruba, you have Igbo, you have Zulu. All these people used to have a very definite language structure, very definite way of life, and they used to identify themselves with a definite color, definite way of life, definite thinking, and not only that, that traditions have been transferred from generation to generation for thousands of years. You don't know when. You know, every time the technology is improving and you are pushing the world behind. In the beginning, if you see 200 years back, they used to say that the world started when the Torah started because they didn't know what is happening in the rest part of the world, and I always make a joke of it. And the joke is such that, you know, if you see a child in your home, everybody has children at home, a time comes in the life of a child when he is like 1.5 years old, ready to push the flush of the toilet, and he does that and suddenly water comes in and the child comes, "Mom, I did it, I discovered how it happened." Same thing happens. That people, as the technology is putting the world closer together, they are realizing, oh my God, Africans, 40,000 years. I have a book which covers the names of the kings of Zambia, the southern part of Africa, for 8,000 years. And there is a systematic depiction of this. So the time behind is growing, and as this technology is growing. And funniest part, I am a nanotechnologist by profession. And funniest part is, and I have a very nice presentation, sometimes I will come again. The topic is congruence of modern science and ancient wisdom. And now, the recent most technology which uses the transmission electron microscopy has shown that there are 2 peptide and 1 protein structure which constitutes the building block of 6 different bacteria. And those 6 different bacteria have different properties. Obviously, a time will come when we will find not only 2 peptides and 1 protein, but even smaller, and finally the modern science will prove, which has been proclaimed by our forefathers, Ekam Sat, Vipraha Bauddha Vedanti. So there is something one which can be expressed or manifested in different parts, and this was the basic theme, which was the basic belief of all the ancient traditions around the world. And that's why, without blinking the eye, an Igbo African from West Africa, they have a proverb which says, without the permission of the God, even the blade of grass can't move its head here and there. And not only that, the Africans, without thinking about it, if you get a chance to read the book written by John Beatty, he said that African people used to be notoriously religious in nature, so they used to carry the God always wherever they go, 24/7. Isn't it Hindus think the same way? Hindus think the same way. That 24/7, I had a very interesting thing. I spent time in Israel, and the Jewish people used to be very proud that we gave the concept of holiday to the world. And they said, Yashwant, what about you guys, man? You are there for a long time. I said, I'm very sorry. He said, why are you sorry? I said, we have so many gods, and each god has such a short work to do in the year. Rest of the time they interfere with our life, so we have to be on our toes 24/7. We can't afford a holiday. And that was the thing. So this, if you look at the ancient traditions of the world, it's very interesting. And I would like to make a distinction between 2 terms. We normally use these 2 terms. One is Dharma, which is way of life, and second is religion, which is a established, organized system of philosophy or theosophy, where there is one book normally, one Messiah is there, one way of worship is there, you congregate at one place and do it. And that's religion. So if you look at all these ancient traditions, where 1,000 African traditions are there are 500 nations in Native Americans in America, there were different types of pagan traditions in Europe, pre-Christian pagan traditions. There are hundreds and thousands of indigenous traditions all over the world. There are Australian Aboriginals, there were Maoris in New Zealand, and all these people never believed per se in religion concept. It was the way of life for them. And that's why this way of life so developed in this concept that they really gradually you will see that if you ask a Native American, he will say that I can't do this. So why you can't do this? Because it has been told And I always ask a very simple question to explain the difference between these. When I say a simple question, 2 plus 2 is equal to 4, correct? 3 plus 3 is equal to 6. 4 plus 4 is equal to 8. If I ask you a question, why? And you start thinking, why 2 plus 2 is equal to 4? Why 3 plus 3 is equal to 6 and 4 plus 4? The only answer, logical, can be given is, it was taught to me in the elementary school, first grade. My teacher came and told 2 plus 2 is equal to 4, better you count it. If you write 5, you will get 0. Somebody told that 2 plus 2 is equal to 4, and that's why the world agreed to it. In this similar way, all the ancient traditions around the world behave that this somebody has to be an elder, a person who is knowledgeable. And this knowledgeable person will tell, and rest of the generations will follow. And that's how the concept of the elder was developed in all these traditions all around the world. And that's why the religion and dharma, they are all two different concepts. Most of the ancient traditions around the world can be classified as way of life and dharmic traditions. And there are certain commonalities around the world. I'm going to talk about those commonalities to understand why the ICCS does the work and this beyond religion also. The common, if you see the concept of God, without blinking the eyes, we talk about Vishnu Sahasranama, 1,000 names of Vishnu. We don't even think why there is need for 1,000 names. There are attributes. In African traditions, the gods are known as Nagui, Nagombe, Nagagwe, different kinds of. And if you translate those, it's very interesting. The God with big eyes, don't make any mischief because he's a big eyes God, he's going to watch you. The God with long hand, if you are in trouble, God will stretch his hand and pull you out of the trouble. God with big ears, if you have any wounds, God is going to listen to you. These are the definitions or attributes of the God in African tradition. You go all over the world and look at the tradition, God was not restricted to one gender. This is another greatness of all the pre-Christian traditions. We find that there are gods and goddesses in all these pre-Christian traditions, and to share a very interesting experience we had in the last conference in Nagpur. We had one delegate who was coming from Hungary, actually, but he is working in Mongolia. He had his PhD from Theosophical Institute in Princeton, and during that he started reading about paganism, and from Christian missionary he turned into a pagan missionary. And now he is working a lot, and he used to get a lot of dreams. And in his dreams, he used to see a picture of goddess. And several years he was looking for why this goddess, where from it comes. Finally, when he was in Nagpur, we were discussing all those things, and we went, and one of our Karyakarta, Major Mathur Vaisa, he was a military person, but then he got involved in all the European pagan tradition. And he took him to a temple of Tripura Sundari Raja Rajeshwari, and when he saw the temple, he was in tears, and he said, this is the one I was seeing for many years. And now they are building a temple in Hungary for Raja Rajeshwari Tripura Sundari. And it is very interesting to see that this existence of gods and goddesses has been common all over. In African tradition, there are many goddesses. And this is not God is not something which is gender biased. It is, everybody is equal. Not only God, without blinking our eyes, we say, Tvameva Mata cha Pita Tvameva, you are my brother, you are my brother sister, you are my friend. Even in other words, in the modern words, you can describe it as you are my girlfriend. And if you really translate literally, it may feel in the modern concept that God must decay. The reason is his mother, his father, he this, he that. Without thinking this thing, we say that because all these traditions had a human relationship with God. And that's why if you go to Africa, Africans will never go empty-handed to the God. If somebody is sick in the house, African will take kolana, little bit of wine. Everybody has his own ways of, and gods are different. So if I am drinking wine, I love a God who drinks wine. If I eat meat, I love Kali because Kali likes the sacrifice and eat meat and all those things. So it is that freedom. So the Africans, they always carry something. In India also, you will find that the maximum attendance of the temple is during from February till April, because that is the exam season. And all the kids and their parents are worried because if he fails, there is a problem. So parents also stay in the line, kids also stay in the line, and the things change little bit. In good old days, when I was very young, my mother used to spend only 1 rupee and 25 cents as an offer to the God. Nowadays it is 101 or 1001. That's the only difference. But everybody will have a human relationship with God and try to give something to the God to get something from the God. And that human relationship was there. And not only that, all these traditions, if you pick up any thought in Native Americans, any thought in Africans, any thought in Hinduism, or any thought with Australian Aborigines or Maoris, they always thought about total humanity. For example, without blinking our eyes, we say Sarve Bhavantu Sukhina, Sarve Santu Niramaya. Why not a single Indian spiritual leader at least once said that only Brahmin should go to heaven, rest of the people will go to hell? It never happened. It always, all philosophy, you pick up Gita, you pick up Mahabharata, you pick up Ramayana, you pick up Yoruba traditions, you pick up Native American traditions, all are applicable to total humanity, Sarve Bhavantu Sukhina. Let everybody be happy. That was the way of life 2000 years before. And not only that, all these traditions believed in human being in totality. And for example, it's very interesting. In African tradition, they say that when you perform any rituals at home or ancestor worship, you invoke the spirit of your father, you invoke the spirit of your grandfather, and you invoke the spirit of great-grandfather, and then you say all the remaining ancestors. So African traditions divide ancestors into two parts, living ancestors and dead ancestors. And the reason is very simple. Even if whether I want it or not, my personality is influenced by my great-grandfather. Before that it doesn't happen. But 100 years span is there where this influence comes, and in good old days, nowadays those days you don't see that type of grandfathers around. But in good old days when the child was born, the grandmother will say he is walking like a great-grandfather. He looks like a great-grandfather. And in many traditions around the world, they put the name Junior, Junior, Junior like that, because as if he is a reincarnation of this. So, and in Bharat also, when we do the Shraddha ceremony, we always invoke the spirit of the father, grandfather, and then say the Rishi, who are the starting point somewhere at some point. So, it is always a human being in totality concept over there, and that's why all these ancient traditions never ever thought of proselytization. They never thought that Masai should be converted to Kikuyu, Kikuyu should be converted to Xhosa, or Yoruba should be converted to Igbo. They never thought it. Or, Dakota should be converted into Lakota, or Iraqis should be converted into Onida or Onondaga. They never thought that. There were no conversion, there was no proselytization, there were no missionaries. Because they thought that when you are thinking about a human being in totality, so you need to have sacraments before the birth till the end of the day, and then going another 3 generations, because then only your lifestyle is complete. And how you can pull one person halfway and convert it and put it into some different tradition, what will happen to his sacrament? So they never believed in that. So there was no proselytization, there were no missionaries in all these traditions, there were no conversions in traditions. They always thought about human being in totality and for total humanity. And not only that, it's very interesting that all these traditions had a oral communication or oral traditions. And if you look at their oral tradition, it was always a dialogue between one who is knowledgeable, one is less knowledgeable. If you see Bhagavad Gita, Arjuna asks all the stupid questions and Krishna answers them. Sometimes I always feel in this society, in the first Gita Adhyaya, Arjuna said that my uncle is there, my this is there, that is there, Shiranti Mamagatrani, I am throwing my Dhanusha here. Most of the Hindu society remains in the first chapter, but it is really long chapter. So, in 18 chapters, it is always a dialogue between Krishna and Arjuna giving the essence of life. If you take any of these scriptures, any of the Native American scriptures, there will be always a dialogue. Sometimes the dialogue will be in an animal with a human being, but animal has more knowledge in it. And that's how this dialogue or their oral traditions were there, and the generation to generation, these traditions were transferred through oral tradition, and purity of the traditions were maintained by the elders. So the elders were always respected. And there is a very nice joke about that. One of the white person, he was talking to a Native American, and he said that, "Hi, you guys always say elder, 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 elder. You know, every time whenever you want to refer to, you say elder. What's wrong with you?" He said, "You know, there is a difference between you and me." He said, "What difference between you and me?" He said, "You guys become older and useless to the society, go into hospice and die alone. In Native Americans, we become older and elder, and we contribute positively to the Native American society so that they continue their traditions over the period of time." That was the definition the Native American has said. But it is a very interesting thing that all these ancient traditions had a very good karma theory. And in order to explain that karma theory, I can give you a quotation from Zulu tradition. And this Zulu tradition says that each and every creation of God, not only living but non-living, has idlozi. And this idlozi is present in the creation of the God over the period of time, undergoing several births, doing lot of good karma in life. Idlozi gets assimilated into Ithongo, and the Zulu said, as if a raindrop water gets assimilated into ocean. And this is what the relationship has been expressed by the Zulu tradition of South Africa about the relationship between human and the spirit or the God or whatever you want to call it, that as if a raindrop water gets assimilated into ocean. And that's how all these traditions have a significant presence of God in their lifetime. In Indian concept, we had done a lot of philosophical jumping around. We had Dvaita, Advaita, this, that and all the things. Africans never did all these things. They said that He is there. You don't have to show the child the God. Child has to realize the God. And God is there. He has to just realize it. And that's why realization became the main theme of all the ancient traditions around the world. Those who were closer to the God, those who were spiritual in their actions, they became the elders. They became the guide to the community to develop, to build up and to grow spiritually also. And that's how realization, anubhuti, is the key for all the ancient traditions around the world to understand the God. And that's why when the Native Americans sit on the banks of Ankarani, does all the rules and regulations, he can communicate with the God in form of the fishes which are floating or which are moving in the Ankarani river bed. And that's how this realization was one of the major aspects of all these ancient traditions around the world. And there are certain simple things. And I was wondering, I was in New Zealand, and I met a lot of Maori people. In our Haridwar conference, we are going to get almost 25 to 30 Maori people. So these Maoris, they have a wonderful tradition. And you love to hear, especially in India, it is a very common thing, especially in villages now. In cities it is difficult. They say that when a death occurs in the family, that family will not cook for 10 days. All the neighbors will cook for them and take care of the family. And not only that, they will never leave their dead body alone. Somebody from the family has to stay next to the dead body. And third one rule in their villages is that if a villager doesn't go to the funeral,
Rest of the whole village outcasted because he had no respect for the soul which is living. And to express the soul, they have to go. In African tradition, they have kept the dead body for 2 months, 3 months, 4 months. They have a very good technique that maintain the body. It looks very fresh. I have seen that in Ghana. And interesting, I have seen one of the funeral where they will put the dead body in the cross-leg position and then bury it in the yoga position type of thing. So it's very interesting. But then the concept of death and what is happening after the death, a lot of these traditions have delved into it and tried to find it out, where it is going, how it is assimilating with the God, where is the role of God. And everybody has his own way of interpreting that. And that's why the another concept which comes in, and that is a very interesting concept. In Australian Aboriginals, they say that when a child is conceived, within the first 3 months, the parents of the child, mother and father, or mother and father of the father, or mother and father of the mother, get a dream. And in the dream, someone will come. It may be magpie, it may be barramundi fish. There are 14 different clans. Once you get the dream, the child will be assigned to that clan. Once the child is assigned to that clan, that child will never ever marry with a girl or a boy from that clan. He will marry to the rest of the 13 clans. And they say that over the period of time, a day comes when the child born becomes old and dies. The spirit which entered into his body during the conception now goes back to the spirit and gets ready for the next birth. And that is the rebirth concept is there. And in many of these traditions, this rebirth concept is expressed in different ways. And that's why it was a very interesting experience I had. I was in Guyana, and there was one brother James. He was an elder of the African community there. Hasn't gone to school per se, had an official so-called modern education, but it was very wonderful. So we had a conference in Jaipur in 2006, and the theme of the conference was spirituality beyond religions. And I asked James, what do you think about this theme? Now James' wife was reading Bible, sleeping on a hammock. Without blinking his eyes, he pointed to the book and said, yes, you are very correct. Books came much later. Spirituality came with the humanity. Because spirit was always existing within the body. So anything which allowed this spirit to grow and merge into the greater spirit was spirituality. And that's why spirituality was always beyond the religions. It was always beyond the religions, out of the periphery of the religions. And that's why when we had a conference in Jaipur about the spirituality beyond religions, it was a very interesting presentation from all different traditions, and they were trying to interpret that how the spirituality is different and how it helps in the growth of a human being on different levels, on physical level, intellectual level, mental level and spiritual level. This helps, and how the practices can take you which are not restricted to the religion but goes beyond the religion. And for that purpose, I remember we had a big group from different traditions came to India, and we were organizing their tour. So they went to Haridwar and we organized their lecture, 3-day stay in one of the ashram there. And I was talking to the Swamiji. I requested Swamiji, can we have an agreement? He said, what agreement? I said, don't sell Hinduism, sell the spirituality. And Swamiji said, absolutely, because, spirituality is beyond even Hinduism. So it was a very interesting experience we had with that. But this whole tradition, what International Center for Culture Studies has been doing in the last almost 20 years, we started this somewhere in 1993, and ICCS initially started having interactions with all the people, different types of things. And in 1998, we formed a forum which is called a World Council of Elders of the Ancient Traditions and Cultures. And under this forum, we had almost more than 1,000 people representing over 75 different traditions in more than 100 countries. They all signed. The signature is very simple because it was only 2 lines. I would like to become the member of the World Council of Elders, and the only thing, there is no membership fee or anything, the only condition is that I will work to revive my own traditions in my own countries. And that's it. There is nothing more than, there are no chairman or all those things that are not there because they are divisive over the period of time. And we have so many good experiences. We started in 2003, our first conference was with the theme Vitakwe Vayasin. And most of the people must be knowing that this is a Native American saying, which is a direct translation of Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. We are all in relations. We are all relations. We are part of the same family. Believe it or not, then we started digging out in good number of ancient traditions around the world in their languages. There is a concept of this Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, that whole world is one family. To give you an example, in the northeast of America, there are Native Americans who formed a group called Haudenosaunee. And Haudenosaunee means people of large house who accommodate everybody on earth. That is what their feeling is. If you go to Maori people have a very interesting tradition. They call it Marae. And this Marae is almost like a parallel of Dharamshala in Bharat, where you go to Marae and tell the person who is sitting there that I want to stay here. So he said, yeah, it's free. First thing, free food. Second thing. Third thing is they ask you, so do you have any problems? So you say that, yeah, I have this problem. Okay, then take that God and sleep next to him, because that God will guide you. So they will have, this Marae had several different sculptures of the gods there, Maori gods. And then they will assign you and you sleep there and then you enjoy, and the next day morning, lot of people get their solutions for their problems. And this is very common. Believe it or not, I am reading a book, it is in my bag. That book said that Mao Zedong and Zhou Enlai, when they were very young, they used to go to astrologers to see how the communism will grow in China. Very funny. But this is what used to happen. And he has explained several examples of how people used to be on one phase they were talking this, on the other phase they were using all the astrology and cosmology and all those things to get their aims made. It's a very good book. And that book is a very interesting book because he was an Italian journalist, went to Hong Kong and suddenly came in contact with one of the person who was a storyteller, fortune teller, and that fortune teller told him that for 1 year don't sit in the plane. And he thought that let me practice that. He didn't believe that because you are from Europe, so you are not supposed to believe such things. And those who study all the European concept or Western concept shouldn't be believing this. So he said, let me try it, but it so happened that the plane he was flying crashed. And then he said, okay, so he traveled from Italy to Asia by train or bus, never took any plane there. And then he gave so many examples, fortune teller told me, and nice book to read. But you know, this whole ancient traditions around the world are reviving. This is the good news. And I will share those good things with you now. First thing is, in Guatemala, we had a conference with the Guatemalan Mayans. Our conference is always in collaboration with the Council of Elders of Sacred Maya, Zinca and Garifuna. That is the council of around 400 elders of the Mayan tradition. So when in our Mayan tradition conference, we were there. And it's a great experience to listen to. We had a discussion. There is a journalist, Lalit Jha, and he called me and said that I heard you are having a conference in Maya. I said, yeah. So we talked about how the Mayan feel that one of their brother was born in India, especially the Northeast India, Nagaland, where we say that Mayasura came and Mahabharata, all these things happened, he built a palace and all those things. These Maya people are expert architects and builders. And very interestingly, when we were doing that, we said we'll do the Maya people do the Havan, like fire worship, exactly the way we do it. And there were so many similarities. One of the example I asked him, there was a great person, he is still alive. His name is Alejandro Oxales Cirillo Perez. He is the chairman of this council. And I asked him that how come the Mayas, some 3,000, 4,000 years back, built so much, some huge temples are there. I had opportunity to see many of them. He said, you won't believe. I said, why you say you won't believe? I said, you know, you have studied, you are a PhD, you are a professor, these things are not for you. So he was giving me a hard time. So I said, no, don't worry, you tell me what really you feel that you heard from your elders. He said, you'll never believe that. I said, okay, but please, He said, look, our elders, our previous generation people, were so strong spiritually that they could lift those huge stones with their eyes and put it where it wanted to be. And I said, Alejandro, I believe this. He said, how come? I said, in India there is a story where Chamdev was visiting Sant Naneshwara. The whole village said, Naneshwara, he is coming on a tiger, he is coming in the air with a snake in his hand. And Naneshwara said, oh my God, we are such a small people, what to do? So Naneshwara, Sopana, Nivrutti and Muktabai were sitting on a wall. Naneshwara just requested, Sister Wall, let's go and welcome him now. And the wall goes in air and welcomes the Chandeva. That is the story in Naneshwara's life. I said, this can happen. And this type of stories you see all over the world, the capacities of these people around the world. So I feel the revival of these ancient traditions is a very important aspect. It is happening in Zambia, in Zimbabwe. Nowadays the president of the Zambia, when he took oath in the Zambian language, African language, and he said that I belong there and I am Christian. Doesn't matter. All ancient traditions don't have any problems with this. Very interesting. I had a very good experience to share with you. I was in Suriname, we had a conference like this, and I talked about 40 minutes about the traditions and all those things, and then there was a question answer, and then one white guy, he raised his hand and told me that Dr. Pathak, you talk so much good about the African tradition, but if you look at the Africans today, it's very different. I said, yeah, but as an organization, we have decided a one principle. What principle? I said, Sarve Bhadrani Pashyantu. We are going to see only positives around us, no negativity will be displayed. And suddenly one big African guy came on the stage and hugged me. He said, first time in my life any non-African talked so good about it. It was like Afzal Khan and Shivaji. But it was very good experience for me. So it's a great thing happening around the world. Everywhere Maoris have revived their tradition. If you want to do PhD in Waikato University, you need to learn Maori and submit your PhD thesis in Maori language. They don't allow you to submit your thesis in English. It is a very important thing. And Maoris were one of the most successful people who got the rights of all the lands, hills and water and everything, and they are a model to the rest of the indigenous traditions around the world. So everywhere this is happening. I would like to conclude my talk with one quotation, and you all will love that quotation. It is from a Native American. He says, if you want to talk to God, and he says very comfortably, no emotions. He says, if you want to talk to God, it's very easy. Go to a secluded place and meditate. A time comes when you understand the music of the water flowing through the streams. A time comes when you understand the music of the breeze flowing through the woods. The best way to talk to God is to keep yourself mum. The moment you start talking, God stops talking. And that's why spirituality is always beyond the religion.